Hello, I'm Alton. Welcome to HIV Talk Show. I'm here with Daniel from AIDGwinnett, the HIV Prevention Educator. We're here today to talk about AIDGwinnett and the services that we have at AIDGwinnett, which is right outside of Atlanta.
Yes.
And we also are talking about your work with youth and teens. So, would you tell us a little bit about AIDGwinnett?
Well, AIDGwinnett is the main HIV clinic in Gwinnett County, servicing Gwinnett, Rockdale, and Newton County. And we provide services for people living with HIV and HIV-related services in the Gwinnett County area. We provide everything from HIV testing, condom distribution, and of course services for people living with HIV, such as providing them with medication for people who can't afford to get medication, as well as providing them with medical services. If somebody needs to see a doctor or see a HIV specialist, they can come to AIDGwinnett. And the other services we also provide are support services. Sometimes people will need things like a phone call just to see how you're doing, or meal delivery for people who are bedridden and can't get out to get just basic things. We provide volunteer opportunities as well for people who are interested in volunteering in HIV and HIV work. And my department, of course, which is the prevention department, allows us to go out in the community and educate people about HIV, particularly young people who are the future generation. And we're hoping that they are educated about HIV and they can help slow down or hopefully put an end to this virus through education.
I think that's the best thing we can do. That's
Yes.
wonderful. Now, when you go to talk to teenagers, how do they receive you? I mean, are they thinking about HIV, or is this something that they totally is not on their radar?
I think a lot of the young people I've spoken to are thinking about HIV, but probably not the way we want them to think about it. I think we want them to take it a whole lot more serious, because the attitude is almost as if it's not something that's going to happen to them. And I particularly work with high-risk youth, young people in the detention centers in Gwinnett County. And by young people, we mean young people under the age of 24, which is our main service group for youth. And a lot of them are not taking it serious. And part of the reason is because a lot of young people just feel as if it's not something that they hear about personally. Hear about it on TV, they see it, they see it in the movies, or not even in the movies, but on some of the shows and things that of that nature that kind of brush on the issue, but they're not seeing it at home or in the communities. And what I try to explain to them is HIV is alive and kicking, and young people are getting infected, and you are at risk. And we usually use about 4 different sessions to really make the message hit home and try to stick it in their heads.
So when you go to them and you start talking to them, what questions do they have for you? What is on their minds?
I'm real surprised that I get a lot of the questions that I think youth and even adults should know by now, that you can't get HIV from hugging, you can't get HIV from kissing, you cannot get HIV from sharing a glass of water or drinking from a water fountain. And I'm surprised that there are still young people who are asking those type of questions. Will I get HIV from someone who doesn't have HIV? The type of things that you just expect that they know. So it tells me that we have a lot of education to do. And a lot of times they really want to know, well, how many people have HIV? Because I don't know anybody who has HIV. And they're really trying to see if this virus is as serious as we say it is. And we try to really explain to them that it is.
Well, I guess it just shows you just how much we always have to be continually educating.
That's right.
It's never over.
That's right.
Consistent, always. And just because you think someone knows this stuff, when you are in the field, we actually in this field, but there are people who are not in this field, and
Oh yeah.
and have that misinformation out there.
I mean, we still get phone calls where people are asking, hey, I found out a coworker has HIV, and I wanted to know if I could get it from using the same phone. I have a 2-year-old at home, and I'm worried that I might, and to hear this from an adult telling you, that they're worried about getting HIV from a phone, it really, really means we got to really keep putting that message out there of how HIV is transmitted, how it's not transmitted, and why it's important that we all get educated.
So now, you said you go into the detention centers. So how do they respond to you when you walk in the door?
I try to be real laid back, going into youth detention centers, rehab programs. I try to really get down to their level, speak their language, because I think that it's so important for them to understand that I'm not coming in here to preach. I'm coming in here to educate you about something that you need to know. So I really, break down the barriers from the time they walk in the door, because if you're in a detention center, of course, everybody on the outside looks like a authority.
Right.
So I really try to break that down and let them know, I'm not a police officer. I'm not working with the state or anything like that. I didn't come to investigate or anything. I came to educate you. So for the most part, I usually don't have any problems with, reaching them, getting them to listen. I think the toughest thing is getting them to take it with them, and taking it back into their communities and making sure that they're being responsible when they're having sex, and making more efforts to learn more about HIV and getting themselves tested. That's the most important thing.
I have an 18-year-old niece, 13-year-old niece, and 10-year-old niece.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when do you think an uncle or a parent or an adult guardian should start talking to their children or nephew or nieces or whoever it is about sex and safe sex and those type issues?
I think it's a very different time. You have, kids having sex as early as middle school. So, and I think that that's an individual choice when a parent should talk to a young person, because not every child is really ready for that talk or even needs to have that talk at such an early age. If you can, and you start seeing the signs that they're, maybe talking on the phone, or they've found themselves a partner, if they're 12 years old and they're talking on the phone with a boy or a girl, maybe that time to talk might be right about then. When you start seeing relationships develop, when you start seeing that there's they've got a peer group around, those type of things, that's a great time to start talking to young people, because if you're not talking to them, you better believe their friends are talking to them. So when they start to develop those friendships and those bonds, and you're seeing how close they are, and then they start having interest in, having a boyfriend or having a girlfriend, then that time might be the right time to talk. Now, if you're a parent who you just totally comfortable with it, totally cool with it, then you can talk to your young person at any time, and as long as you're making sure you're getting the message out right. And it's so important to not preach to young people, to really get the message out there in a way that they're comfortable with talking to you about it, and they're comfortable with coming back to you about it. You don't want to have that talk one time and all of a sudden you create a door and they never want to talk about it with you ever again.